I'm trying to have a serious look in my face.
I'll get you close.
Ready?
Yeah, that's it. Go, Billy. You're right, guys, and welcome to the latest episode of Muscle Owl Talks. I'm here today with Terri and Billy Ellsworth, famous in the community somewhat, you could say. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Billy Ellsworth, and I'm 17, and I was born with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And my dog BB is behind the iPad.
Nice. And Terri?
Yes, hi, I'm Terri, Billy's mom. And as Billy said, he was born with Duchenne muscular dystrophy at 4 1/4, and that was back in April 2005. And so we just passed, I hate to call it an anniversary, but for lack of a better name, 13 years since diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
So, as most know, Billy is still doing, extremely well. We feel very fortunate. I hate to use the word lucky, but again, I'm stuck on what to call it. Yeah. But he's doing extremely well, as everyone knows. And we owe it to the FDA-approved treatment that he was fortunate enough to be one of 12 boys in the world to trial back in August 2011. Started that trial, and he still receives that infusion weekly. So he's done amazingly well on it. He's been a great responder, and he's still very ambulatory and self-sufficient, and hasn't shown much decline. We just surpassed 2 years since our FDA advisory committee hearing. That was April 25th, 2016. So 2 years, and he has had very little decline even since then. He'll say, maybe I feel a little weak or a little slower, but he still walks into school every day when either he or his dad or myself drops him off and picks him up, and he still walks into the hospital each week. His choice. I always ask him, Billy, how do you feel? Do you want me to push you? And, he chooses to walk in. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's part of what we were saying. We could do this introductory episode about your life and your journey so far. And, you've gone through lots of different things, with, Billy, the treatments that you've been on, and you appeared at the AdCom, the FDA AdCom a few years ago, or a couple of years ago now, and all these different things. And, you still walk at the age of 17. I don't know, what's your journey been like up until this point? What's the kind of progression been like of your journey in the community?
My whole life, it's been kind of difficult, but I've gotten used to it. Difficult because of everything I went through, like the infusions. Every Wednesday I went to Columbus, Ohio, and I had to do 4 muscle biopsies. The first one, that was tough for me because at first I didn't want to do it. Actually, I don't think I could opt out of the first one. The first 3 I couldn't, but the 4th one I almost didn't do. But enough people convinced me, and I convinced myself. Yeah. Because people told me without my information, it might, it would help. I mean, what am I trying to say?
It helped the more boys
the more people who did it, the better.
Data.
I mean,
you feel it's
the
helped
drug
you.
has helped me a lot.
And where do you think you'd be?
I mean, even when I was younger, I was doing well, but I think without the drug, I would have not been walking now. Or who knows, maybe a freak occurrence would have had me walking still. Yeah. Because some boys with Duchenne are still walking as teenagers, but it's very rare.
Very rare, right. And because he was such an extreme toe walker, and everybody knows it, and that's a sign, as we all know, near the end of ambulation. And he was probably near the end of ambulation, near the beginning of the trial. He was 10 3/4 when the trial started. So within a year, other parents, and it was a couple of dads that brought it to my attention. Once the drug went open label, and it was revealed because it was a placebo-controlled trial for the 6 months. And so nobody knew who was getting the drug. But I guess, we watched each other's boys, and, it's natural. You do comparisons. And after it was revealed whose child was on the drug and who was on the placebo, there were 2 dads in particular that I remember, and they both said, I knew it. I knew Billy had to have been getting the drug because his heels are much closer to the ground. But I, as his mom, never really noticed that because I see him every day. It's too subjective.
Yeah.
So from other objective eyes, they said they both noticed it, that his heels are much lower to the ground. And now, flash forward 6 years later, almost 7 years, his heels are still close to the ground.
Yeah.
They're not completely flat, but he's definitely not up on his toes like he was. So the drug is doing what it said it would do. The intent of the drug was to slow the progression. And with Billy, it's done exactly that. Now, each patient will have their own response to a drug, just like any drug. You might prefer Tylenol, and I might prefer Motrin, if you have those brands over there.
Yeah.
So he's had a great response.
Yeah, I can still do a lot of daily tasks. Like, I can get dressed myself, brush my teeth, eat. Time I need help in showers, getting up out of my shower chair and getting out of the shower.
Yeah.
Still, 2 years since the FDA AdCom, we had 3 minutes to speak between us, and he had like 45 seconds. And, our briefing documents were so negative, and I was so angry. We all were. And I thought, I have to refute the briefing documents. And that's what the reviewers, the briefing documents are what the reviewers put in a package, and their comments on their thoughts on the efficacy of the drug. And it just angered me because they were so incorrect. And so I had to change my speech to refute what the advisory, the FDA scientists were saying, because we had one shot at this. And I thought, I'll be darned, as much as he's gone through, and all the boys, but he's mine. So as much as he's gone through, I had to give it my best shot, because we only had one shot at this. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. We had one shot, and and 3 minutes is not long. I mean, there's so much more I wanted to talk about, but I had to refute the briefing documents. And, he stood up there, and I said, he still is very independent. So fast forward now 2 years since then, he is still doing all of those things. Yeah. He still dresses himself, and he gets up in the middle of the night most nights and goes to the bathroom.
Oh yeah, I can brush my teeth myself.
Yeah, he does all of that, and then he'll put himself back into bed. And he has a high bed, and it was purchased before he was diagnosed, so he still has it. So it's a little higher than usual. So he has a little step stool that he has to climb up on and then get into bed. Yeah. He does all of that still without calling out for help. Yeah. And that's kind of remarkable. Yeah. Not kind of, it is remarkable that he can do all that. And he's like 17 and a half.
Oh, of course.
A month he'll be 17 and a half. And those halves and quarters are important in Duchenne world, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you both have been so brilliant at raising awareness for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, across the States and internationally as well, with things like, the videos that you share and things like that. And I guess, Billy, you have your own kind of style of kind of character, in the videos that you guys share as well. Why is that important to you, I guess?
Right. So when he was diagnosed 13 years ago, if somebody would have said, well, first of all, that he would be one of the first in the world to trial a drug, I would have been stunned to hear that. Yeah. So, after he was diagnosed 6 years later, he was eligible and qualified for the trial. And then if somebody would have told me in August 2011, when his trial started, that, we would be out there as very vocal advocates, I would have thought, no, that's not us. That's not me. I was very, very shy growing up, my whole childhood, even into high school. Very shy. And I really didn't come out. I'm a late bloomer. And I didn't grow out of that until I was in my 20s. But thank God I did, because your voice, what I've learned through this journey is, so it wasn't planned, in other words. I never set up here or had a thought that I'm going to do this and be vocal. And never in a million years. That was not
No, of
any
course.
planning at all.
Yeah.
It just organically happened when I started seeing him do things.
Yeah.
And the first thing that I saw him do was jump off the bottom step when we were watching the Olympics. His dad and I, because we love watching the Olympics, and I saw him jump off the bottom step.
Yeah.
And then he looked up, and I still have the image of him up here. And I said, wow, did you see that? And his dad said, yeah, he's done that before. Well, must have been when I wasn't home. But when I saw that, and my words have been quoted over and over, when he jumped off one step, which shouldn't be a milestone at almost 11, but it was, for muscular dystrophy, it was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And I knew it was. And but he stuck the landing, is what I said. And that's been quoted over and over again, because he didn't fall, he didn't teeter, he didn't do anything. He just like landed so solidly.
Yeah.
And I still have that image in my head. Yeah. And that was my very first post of success. And I hesitated even posting that.
Wow.
The trial was unblinded. So the first 6 months of the trial, we signed consents. You were not allowed to talk about anything that goes on in the trial, not even really to immediate family. I knew that I wasn't breaking any rules by doing that, but I also read posts daily, and I know how fast these boys decline. And I thought, how dare I post something like this when I see other boys losing skills by the day. Yeah. And I just, I struggled with that, and I still do to this day, to be honest with you. On one hand, I think I really believe it's important to show that the drug is still working. And granted, he's been a great responder to it, but, some thought it might work for 2 or 3 years. Well, we're like 7 years later now, almost 7 years later, and it's still working, and boys are regaining skills. Even if they're non-ambulatory, they're still be able to use their upper body, and the pulmonary results that came out are really so much better than anybody expected. So it's important to show that the drug is still working, because let's face it, we all know there were some naysayers that may still think the drug isn't worth it or doesn't work. Well, I'm here to say it does still work, and folks need to know that. Yeah. But then struggle with, because I know, most of my friends, boys are losing ambulation at 8, 10, 12, 15, and here he is still. So I struggle with that to this day.
I think you guys have, having seen your posts for a long time, I think you guys have a really good balance between, the posts that you make about, Billy's progress and the treatments and everything, and the posts that you make that are just kind of fun posts as well, just kind of sharing your story as a family.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a balance. I mean, we have struggles in our family, just like every family does. Luckily, he's still doing well, with the Duchenne, but there's always other issues that every family or most families struggle with. And when I do post, his success, or him go walking to the zoo sessions with his peers, which is amazing. I mean, I get public posts, thank yous, and I get a lot of private posts. I mean, families reached out to me shortly after approval. I mean, right now I regularly talk to a mom. We've become friends in Iceland. We Skype, and we've become close friends, and she knows who she is, because I'm sure she'll be seeing this. But and then there's a family from a mom and dad from Northern Ireland that reached out to me shortly after approval. Her son is now traveling to London weekly, and other families. So, and when they started reaching out, I thought, how in the world do they know us? And they says, well, we've seen Billy's videos. Billy's quite famous everywhere. So I told him this, and I said, Billy, this is, what you've done. I said, not just him, all the other boys. Any boy in any clinical trial is a warrior, in my opinion. Because if these kids don't, because they're volunteers, nobody's forcing them to do any of this.
Oh, of course.
If they don't do this, science does not move forward. So they're all warriors, and that's another thing we need to work on, is to make sure that these trials are enrolled, because if they're not, it keeps things, at a slower pace.
Yeah, and I think that's what you guys do so well is like, Duchenne advocacy online and raising awareness online isn't always just about saying, talking about Duchenne or talking about facts and things like that. It's sometimes just sharing your life and those kind of fun videos that, Billy, you share sometimes. Like, that's raising awareness about Duchenne, even if it's just kind of talking about yourself, being silly.
Well, like no, because
that's it. It's character though.
Of Duchenne too, but he knows it's part of his life, and but like he said earlier,
Why did that look like
he
a
doesn't.
Dragon Ball
He's not going to let it rule his world because you have to live life. But so there's a time and a place. You have to take care of the serious stuff, but you got to have fun too.
Oh, of course. And in terms of in the community, have you been? You were saying earlier you've been quite involved in the community with PPMD, and you've done half marathon as well.
Well, I did one half marathon. It wasn't pretty, so it was ugly as a matter of fact. I finished, but I did finish and got my medal at the end. But yeah, I mean, MDA here in Pittsburgh, and we talked briefly. We were invited to Australia last year, and so I got to meet the MDA, the leader there as well, the director of MDA Western Australia. So yeah, we do what we can do, and you can't participate in everything, and we fundraise, when we can.
And do you have anything coming up in the community over the next few weeks, months?
Well, let's see. Starting something immediate is I was invited to co-lead a roundtable, and it's on clinical trials and recruitment and maybe obstacles to that. And because, we have such experience with that. Billy's not part of this, but so I'm co-leading a roundtable in Philadelphia. I go tomorrow, and it's a summit Monday and Tuesday. Nice. Well, there'll be, advocates and industry leaders. And so that should be interesting. And then, of course, at the end of June, we go to PPMD conference this year in Scottsdale, Arizona. Oh, so Billy and I will be attending that at the end of June.
Oh,
so Billy,
awesome.
I'm in Arizona, so we'll get to see the desert.
Yeah, no, it sounds really good. Well, you have to keep us updated on that. And yeah, thanks for sharing your journey in this episode with us. And yeah, we'll hear from you again soon.
Okay, great. Thanks, Peter.
I actually want to say what I'm doing tomorrow. Can I say?
Yeah, say what you're going to do tomorrow.
I just want to add one fun thing in.
Yeah.
Well, I did add some fun things, but one last tidbit. So tomorrow I'm going to see the new Avengers movie. Have you seen it yet?
Oh, nice. No, I've not seen it. I'll have to go and see it soon.
Yeah, I'm going to see it tomorrow.
Well, come on
my
over
best
and
friend.
take the red eye and come over.
I'll be there at 8 a.m.
My best friend and his dad and my dad.
Nice. Oh, well, Billy, tell us how it goes. Yeah?
I will.
That can be the next episode.
I mean, I won't spoil anything, though.
No spoilers allowed. Rules. Yep. Right. We'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.